Welcome to the American Grown Podcast, hosted by Austin Sullivan. The American Grown Podcast will focus on people from different walks of life and their journey to where they are now. Now, turn up your volume and settle in for a great episode.
Hi, I'm Austin Sullivan, and I'm your host for the American Grown Podcast, recorded inside the Colortech Creative Solutions studios. Today, we have Jordan Bleyer, a Pennsylvanian-based musician, manifesting his dreams to become the next big hit. His stage name is Michael Wavves. Welcome to episode 9 of the American Grown Podcast.
Appreciate you having me, man. I'm psyched.
Yeah, I'm glad you could be here. So in the form, I saw your pet turtle's name Curtis.
Yeah.
My wife and I were talking about it, and she was wondering where the name came from.
Yeah, I'm super random. I mean, I feel like my answer for a lot of questions in terms of like names and ideas is usually pretty random. Yeah, super random, dude. I love naming, probably like a lot of other people, I love naming pets with like human names.
Okay, yeah.
So I wish I could remember, my memory's garbage, but I wish I could remember why I chose the name Curtis. There really is no rhyme or reason or story, which I enjoy. Like his tank is in my studio room at home.
Nice.
So I like
okay.
walk and be like, yo, what's up, Curtis?
Yeah.
So just like he's a human. So no particular interesting story. But
Gotcha. I had to ask.
Yeah, kind of a goofy random name.
Yeah. Would you say he's your muse if he's in the studio?
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah. I guess, yeah, sometimes I enjoy like I think having like, I don't know, I love water, and I know like it's a turtle tank, so it's kind of odd. It's not like a lake or an ocean or anything.
Yeah.
There's something a little that's just tranquil about water, and like the sound of trickling water and stuff
definitely.
like that. So there's definitely been moments now that you say that, like I think of it sitting in the studio, like
Kind of soothing.
soothing for real, like trying to just calm your mind. So you kind of sit there and like close your eyes and just listen.
Yeah.
And a lot of times when I'm just sitting there listening, that's the noise I'm hearing. So maybe that has actually been a bit of a muse, or like, sometimes it's helped me kind of clear my mind to try to like tap into a flow state, while trying to like write a song or just trying to chill. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, perfect. So let's start from the beginning.
Yeah.
What was your early childhood like? What was life like growing up? Siblings, give us all the deets.
Yeah, so I'm from Lebanon. I think you actually said that earlier, but yeah, I'm from Lebanon. I grew up, I'm trying to think of how far it is from here. I don't know, probably like 7 minutes from here. Out in South Lebanon. Obviously, we both went to Cedar Crest. My family is pretty, I don't want to say traditional, but I mean pretty traditional. Yeah, like grew up in a nice middle class home, and I have 2 younger sisters. My parents are together. Grew up in a residential development in a cul-de-sac. Played street hockey with my friends. Even though I was like pretty garbage at like roller skating, I was always the goalie because I couldn't rollerblade for shit. But yeah, so I never really, there was nothing too, I guess, I don't want to say too exciting. I was just kind of like a, high school athlete, not great. Like I always describe myself as like a B team athlete, which is kind of, I played in games. I always made the team, but I was not like a star player or anything like that. But yeah, my early childhood, I grew up actually a little more in Lebanon. And then when I was in 2nd grade, moved outside of Lebanon City out to South Lebanon and started going to Cedar Crest. But yeah, pretty traditional, man. Not too exciting. Pretty big family in terms of like my grandparents were always around, and stuff like that. It wasn't like our family was like isolated from the rest of our family. So it was, pretty traditional in that way. Yeah, comfortable, traditional.
In high school, what did you like to do? I know you said you did some sports and things like that. But basketball, football. Was there also any musical instruments, any kind of chorus, concert, anything like that?
Right. Yeah. Oddly enough, no. Like, so I played pretty much every sport growing up. Like when I was younger, played soccer. I feel like this area, everybody played like youth soccer.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then kind of stopped doing that when I got a little bit older. Played basketball. Played like midget football for CQM out in Cornwall.
Oh yeah. I think almost everybody went through CQM.
Right.
The minors, the CQM minors.
CQM minors. Yeah, dude, we sucked, bro. I think we won like 1 game.
Oh, it's tough.
But yeah, so played football when I was younger. Played all the way up until my 9th grade year. I was our quarterback, and we went like 0-9, and we were just. I also was like such a puss in high school, so like coaches yelling at me, and so the whole football mentality. I, for some reason, at that age, didn't click with it, so I started running cross country.
Okay.
Ran track, like I said, played basketball. So those were the sports I kind of finished out. Played baseball, so out in Iona and stuff like that. So played pretty much every sport, but no music really at all, which is pretty wild because my life now is like super centered around music, and it's not even so like maybe instruments, but just like learning as much about music as I can, because I'm not like traditionally trained or classically trained in anything. I don't know how to play any instrument. I don't even know when I'm singing what key I'm really singing in, unless I'm in the studio and I, like the recording software can tell me what key I'm in, or whatever.
Yeah.
So I don't really know anything about that. I wasn't in chorus. I wasn't in choir. I wasn't in the band, nothing like that, which is pretty wild, like I said, because back then, I think about this all the time, especially, whenever I'm in Lebanon, because I try to tap back into like what life was like back then. I never would have thought when I got older. I still remember, dude, like super random like thought, but like I remember being in the car and like hearing people on the radio and like, man, like I wish I could sing. It'd be cool to be a singer, knowing nothing about it. But I still remember distinctly having a thought of like, it would be cool to be a singer.
Right.
And even as I started to like make my own music, it was initially just like rapping because I couldn't sing. And I kind of taught myself how to sing just by continuing to try.
Yeah.
I took singing lessons for a little bit. But yeah, man, it was nothing really, like I said, dude, I was like a B team athlete. I was a good student, AB student, but nothing, I wasn't like top of the class. I wasn't a star athlete. I was kind of just in the middle mix there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Kind of I don't want to say a forgettable face, but kind of like that. I hung out with the cool kids. I got invited to the parties, but I was never like a sought after person.
Yeah. And that was huge at that stage in life. That's huge. When you're in high school and stuff, it's like you want to be in that clique.
Right.
But now when you mentioned, like car rides, or you're listening to music, were there any artists or musicians out there that you kind of look up to, or you're like, wow, I like what they're doing?
Yeah. So in high school, again, like super wild to continue to still think about it. But like, even when I was in high school, I didn't have any, like, I wasn't big into music. I listened to like whatever was on the radio, which now if like somebody came up to me as an adult, like I listened to what's on the radio, I'd be like, oh, that's so whack. But like when I was younger in high school, dude, I listened to what's on the radio, maybe like mixed CDs, but I didn't even really know who the artists were. Maybe like Green Day or like something like that. It wasn't anything like, I wasn't into music. Like there's people in high school, you could tell like music played a really big part in their lives. That was not me in high school. So in high school, I didn't really have anybody in particular. When I got into college is more when I got into music, I think, because I was exposed to it just by the college environment. Like for people listening that don't really understand like maybe college and that setting, first of all, college is a scam financially, first point. But like when you get into college, the benefit, I think, and my wife and I talk about this all the time, I think the big benefit is, you're exposed to so much different culture, different types of people,
for sure.
Literally different languages, different opinions, different backgrounds, different music. And that's when I think there was some switch in my head that went off. Like I wrote poetry in high school because I had to do it in English class for an assignment. Like literally, I can't remember the teacher's name. I think her name was Miss Tavella, if I remember that right.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, I'd have to Google it to see if
it's been a while, but
right.
yeah.
And I didn't even like English class. Like I didn't really like to write like papers or anything like that. Like once I got to college, I was good at like bullshitting papers and kind of seeming like I knew what I was talking about.
Right.
Which I think is the real art of college. But
exactly.
But yeah, when I was in high school, bro, it was like I was in English class, had to write a poem about love for literally an assignment in class. And I remember coming home to my parents and sitting at my desk, and which is funny because the same desk I sat at actually is the same desk that's in my studio room now, where Curtis's tank sits on. Yeah, which is pretty wild. Yeah, it's kind of cool actually.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember sitting at that desk and being like, all right, well, I guess I'll try to write a poem. And, the main thing about writing poetry, I was like rhyme scheme.
Yes,
and
for sure.
I remember sitting down and it was pretty easy to rhyme words. And that was probably the first time ever in my life where I unintentionally discovered that I was good at something naturally. It wasn't like I had to practice at it or, anything like that. It was, I just literally tried it out of the blue because I had to for a school assignment. I'm like, rhyming words was actually pretty easy. I wrote like a full page poem in like 15 minutes, got an A on the assignment, I remember. And I was like, This is kind of tight. So I like kind of randomly wrote poetry at random times because it was just something I enjoyed because I thought I was good at it.
Yeah.
And like I said, once I got to college, that kind of blossomed into the music. So yeah, man, I feel like my high school years, I talk to my wife about this all the time. Her and I have like really great discussion, but I always talk about like, I could kind of do without my high school years looking back. That maybe I'm a bit jaded, but I'm just like, there really wasn't much going on. Everything was kind of generic for me in those years. But yeah, so pretty traditional story, I guess, like coming up through high school. Yeah.
So, and where do you go to college?
Millersville.
Oh, nice.
Over in Lancaster. Yeah.
Lancaster County. Yeah, that's a good. I mean, there's a lot going on in Lancaster County.
Right.
You know,
yeah.
Not that Lebanon's not, but they got a little bit more going on. You got Lidditz there down 501.
Yep.
A lot more. I think artists travel through there. I think there's a club. I can't remember. A lot of people play there. Maybe the Chameleon Club. That might have closed, but
they did close. Yeah. So I headlined there a few different times in the past couple of years. Great place. Staff was kind of iffy at times, but like great place there. Dope size venue, and artists like you said, like really. And I've talked about this before on other like podcasts and interviews and stuff. Like Lancaster is kind of like the third biggest touring market, or was, in Pennsylvania, where like people that would come on tours would come through Pittsburgh, come through Philadelphia, and Lancaster was kind of like a third place spot. Like people would tour through Lancaster through the Chameleon Club or through Tellus 360 downtown.
That's it, yes.
And then there's a new place, actually, I think it's called Mickey's Black Box, which is in Lidditz, right near Rock Lidditz, where people, I don't know if you're familiar with that, those big black buildings where a lot of, like, I think Shawn Mendes was just there last week.
Yeah,
MGK, Katy Perry,
like
Justin
Lady Gaga.
Bieber.
Yeah,
Dude, all these massive acts are like chilling in Lidditz, rehearsing
crazy.
their arena tours. It's wild, bro.
Yeah.
It's like a weird, like, little pocket of the industry in Lidditz, which is super cool. And, but yeah, dude, Lancaster definitely is like, being from Lebanon, sometimes I get spiteful because Lebanon is definitely behind the curve in terms of different things. It's a tougher place. And a good buddy of mine I talked to, I used to work with him. I talked with him all the time because his mom is the mayor. And we would just have conversations about like, you know, how difficult it is to build a foundation to grow on in a certain area that may be like an economically depressed area, or may just not have kind of the bones to grow quickly. Like Lancaster is a place that blossomed pretty quickly into the arts, Lidditz, but those are places that were kind of built for quicker growth in that way. So, but Lebanon always has like Always Love You and Lebanon Bologna and like, you know, Shuey's Pretzels and like, I enjoy the history of the area because it is really fascinating. But sometimes I get spiteful talking about Lebanon because like, I feel like there's always something a little sour about your hometown sometimes. So I get too caught up in that sometimes. I think I have a negative attitude towards Lebanon, but
I got you.
Yeah. Lancaster's dope though. Yeah, definitely.
And you mentioned the mayor here in Lebanon, the Sherry.
Yeah.
Oh, so you know Jimmy?
Jason.
Jason.
I know Jimmy too, but I'm not really. I know Jason a lot closer. Yeah,
okay.
His younger brother. Yeah.
Yeah, because Jimmy's about my age, and I try to get him on the podcast. But anyway, that's a side note. He's big into hunting and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm really not. So I like to interview people that have different backgrounds, different stories than I do.
Right.
Different world experiences. Really.
Definitely.
So I thought that was interesting when you mentioned that.
Yeah.
Do you think there was one person, like some people it's their mom, some people it's their dad, some people it's their grandma,
right?
That really encouraged you or pushed you? Like, so now, Millersville, graduated, you're getting into music, you like it. Is there anybody, maybe your wife, I don't know, but anybody that kind of guided you?
Not really, man. I think for me, and sometimes I, back in the day, would get, when I wasn't near as like mentally strong as I can like develop a certain like mental resilience or emotional resilience as you get older to certain things. I think when I was younger, I used to get spiteful over kind of feeling alone in a journey, and people not understanding, which still happens from time to time, but that's with anything. I'm sure you can relate in some different things. When you want to start a podcast, people might be like, what the fuck, like why, you know what I mean?
Exactly. There's always haters. And I feel like, for me, like you mentioned the podcast, and there's so many different things in life for different people, but it's taking that step, and it's being willing to put yourself out there,
right?
Because so many people, could be like, you know what, why are you doing this? What's the point? Just kind of hateful. But if you don't do it or try it, you'll never know if you're good at it. You never know, and then you got to live with that.
Right. The power that's insane, man. And I'll get back to like answering the question here in a second, but I would love to touch on that point because that's a thing I think a lot of people miss. And not saying like I'm some like woke, like I know what you need to do in life. Like that's not, I was just, I don't know, man. Like even sometimes with my music, I feel like it's a bit of a torturous thing sometimes because I feel like I love it so much and I'm so obsessed with it, the craft and chasing the dream and making it into a career and stuff like that, like a financially stable career for the rest of my life. There's a certain torturous aspect to it, I think, because I feel like I can't escape it. Like there's sometimes I want to turn my mind off, or I want to slow down the thought, or I want to just like step out of that constant chase and constant grind after it and try to just take a breath, which I work on as much as I can, but I feel like, just as a human being, it's hard to do that sometimes, especially when there's a lot of shit going on.
Yeah.
And it's easy to kind of like get really stressed out and get strung out and burn out. And, that's, I'm trying to think how to word it, but like, yeah, it's just, sometimes I wish I could step out of it, but I'm very grateful that I think, I found something that I truly believe I'm meant to do.
Yeah.
I'm meant to make music. I'm meant to try to impact people's lives in that way. And it's just like, it's really the only way I know how to express myself. And like, it's a therapeutic thing where like, there's no feeling, and any musicians that might listen can totally relate. Like, there's no feeling like going through something, processing it, and then being able to put it on paper and make it into a song. Like, even though a song isn't something you can hold, but it's something you listen to and it piques emotions. Like you can put yourself back in the for me, like the space I was when I made it, or somebody can hear it and be like, oh, like this helped me get through. And when I get those types of messages on social media, that's like, so like makes my day and night and everything. Like it's insane just to think that, I don't know. And like I said, it's a torturous thing, but I feel very blessed that, I'm somehow randomly have the ability to be able to craft, I guess, feelings I go through into a song, and that can impact people in a positive light. I mean, I feel like there's no greater gift. It's helping me and helping other people. It's like a win-win.
Right. So if you ever feel like you need a break, what is it for you? And we can go back to the other question about who encouraged you and got you into music. But
no, yeah, sorry.
I figured
totally,
you're
totally
good.
went on a tangent. Didn't even answer it.
You're fine, Jordan. Yeah. I wanted to kind of fantail off of this, but is it going to, like, some people go to the gym, some people just blare music and just close their eyes, some people it's video games on their phone, whatever it is. What's kind of like hey, I need to take a step back. I got all these people messaging me, impacting their lives, which is phenomenal, but like, I got to think about me. Right. What is that for you? Like, what's your break?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I think I should, regardless of, whatever I guess my answer is here, I should do more of whatever it is. Even today was a prime example. Like I said, before we started recording, like my battery died on the way here, and I'm like fucking losing my shit, because I'm like, I leave for tour in 2 days. My battery died. I'm going to be late for this podcast now. So I'm like up in my head, like, unraveling, like, Jesus Christ. But yes, wait, sorry, what was the question again?
So like, what is
things
to
do to
relax, to step away?
Right, yes, okay, sorry.
You're good.
But yeah, I like hiking. I should do it more. And all of these, I guarantee I'm going to be like, I should do this more. I enjoy hiking. I'm trying to think. And I feel like this is like an artist, like, you don't have any hobbies besides what you're trying to pursue. But yeah, I enjoy hiking. My parents just got a pool at their house. I really enjoy swimming. So again, something about water, man. Like I'll be in water for hours, dude. And there's something, I don't know, just very peaceful about that. Yeah, very soothing. I enjoy the beach. Just hanging out with my dog, going on walks, and I live in Lidditz.
Okay. What's your dog's name, real quick?
Wilbur.
Wilbur.
Yeah,
Wilbur. Perfect.
Right. Yeah.
That's
most
awesome.
Yeah. The most
that's great.
Generic name for a dog from Lidditz. But yeah, so I enjoy hanging out with my dog and going on walks with him and my wife, and having great conversation, hanging out with friends, like just kind of, I guess, the generic, type of stuff. But there's something, I should go hiking more. I wanted to hike this week and I didn't. To try to just have a moment where it's like all I hear is like the wind and the birds. You know what I mean? Right.
Just that center of find your center.
Right. Yeah, that kind of stuff definitely helps kind of calm the mind. Yeah.
No, for sure. And for those listeners out there that don't know, Wilbur is Wilbur Chocolate Factory.
Yeah,
Lidditz.
Right. Yeah, some Lidditz stuff right there.
Yeah, because we have some listeners outside of the country, and
love that.
Yeah, so it's really good chocolate. If you ever had Hershey Kisses, it's like that, but just not as sweet. Maybe, I don't know. It's a little different.
Yeah.
But Wilbur Buds, it's called, instead of
Wilbur
Hershey
Buds,
Kisses.
Yeah.
So now to circle back.
Right. Yeah.
Who was there anybody that encouraged you or motivated you, or was like, look, Jordan, like, you got to chase your dream. Let's do this.
Right. Yeah, man. I mean, my parents have always been supportive of what I do. I think there's always been an element of misunderstanding, because nobody really in my family has kind of taken a left turn, so to speak, when, like everybody has kind of, they got the job, they work a stable job, which is, I mean, obviously there's, nothing wrong with that. Like, I mean, I wouldn't have the upbringing I had if it wasn't for, my parents working hard and making choices to, support a family and stuff like that. And, not saying what I'm doing is irresponsible. It's just a different, oftentimes longer marathon as opposed to like that finish line of making it like a financially stable career and something that you can continue to live off of and build for the rest of your life. It takes longer. And I think a lot of people don't understand that, I guess. And at least in my family, like I said, I dealt with a lot of doubt and misunderstanding, kind of trying to pursue this initially, and still do. And that did really affect me pretty deeply for a while.
Yeah.
Where I would be like, man, I feel so isolated and alone, because I feel like all I really have is like my wife that understood. And I mean, I'm immensely lucky that I even had her to be able to like always be there to kind of talk me off a ledge if I was kind of freaking out about something or upset that I felt like I didn't have acceptance or support from like my family and stuff like that.
Right.
But I mean, they always come out to the shows. My sisters always come to the shows. My parents always come out whenever I play Lancaster. So they're supportive. So they're in no way like, you know, they're not like, oh, stop doing this. Like this is irresponsible. But there's definitely been an element of misunderstanding. So I've always felt a bit alone in that way. But when I think back to like when I was younger, I didn't really have anybody in particular guide me into it, because I probably had a little more backlash when I started doing it than support. But I do, my mom's dad, I would have called him my Grandpa Howman. He died when, I don't know how old I was, but maybe like 6 or something. Like I was pretty young. But I was the oldest grandchild in my family, and I was the only grandchild that really has any like distinct memories of hanging out with him before he passed away, because I was the oldest. And I remember at least seeing, and even after the fact, seeing pictures. He did like silent movies and stuff like that. He was really into like the James Dean, Elvis Presley culture and stuff like that. He had like these antique plates on his wall at his apartment of like Elvis and James Dean. And that was probably my first exposure to anything entertainment wise, anything that was just like, I guess, part of the arts, so to speak, because I never really connected with that in school or anything. But when I think back, I'm like, man, where did I mean, music definitely has a big part of my family. Like my dad loves music. Like we play music around Christmas time. My mom likes to play Elvis and stuff like that. Or my dad is really into like the radio station around here, like 105.7 The X. I grew up on listening to that in my dad's truck. And I like a lot of that music. My dad and I went to like Metallica concerts and stuff like that, and Greta Van Fleet concerts and stuff like that. But yeah, so I didn't have anyone particular guide me. But when I think back, like where did I get some sort of like taste of the arts, so to speak? I like to think that my grandpa, you know, I got that from him. You know what I mean? So,
it sounds like I want to say inspiring, but
yeah,
had a different look on life and very, like I said, creative, and just kind of like, hey, you know what? I like this. I'm not afraid to show and tell people that like, hey, this is what I like. This is music I like. How did Michael Wavves start, and who came up with the name? Because I think it's an awesome name. I think it's very catchy. Yeah, honestly, I do.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. So when I first started, I went by my initials, JMB, which is like, and any friends that listen to this, they'll know exactly what I'm talking about.
Okay.
So I started with that name in college, and it was like, you know, my music sucked. It was all about like being in college and like college related stuff. And, you know, it wasn't any impactful music that had any like meaningful substance really. And I remember, like, I always took this super serious even back then when like the music was garbage and like my name was my initials and stuff like that. But when I started to like really think about kind of like fan discovery and different things like that, and like taking this seriously as a career, I was like, I need to have a name that's like more Google friendly.
Yeah, for sure.
And JMB was just not doing it. And number one, it wasn't something, when you Googled that, you weren't finding me right away, number one. And number two, it just didn't sound good. Like, I don't know. I'm sure there's artists out there that are successful that have their, you know, initials being their name. But it just, for me, I was just like, I need something better. So my middle name's Michael. So I was like, well, and I was a big Drake fan. And I saw different artists they use their middle name as their artist name. And so I was like, all right, we'll start with Michael. And I remember, I literally distinctly remember that. My memory's garbage, but I distinctly remember this.
Okay.
A couple different like memories I distinctly remember throughout my life, which is pretty wild. But I used to work at the Hershey company down in Hershey. My dad works there. And over summers in college, he got me a job just being like an administrative, you know, like paperwork type shit. And I remember sitting there because I could do my job in like 45 minutes for the whole day. Because a lot of people there weren't necessarily the most like technologically savvy people. And just being younger, I kind of knew how to do stuff. And, you know, I was doing like simple, like working on like Word documents. I'm like, all right, here we go. Work's done in 45 minutes. Yeah. So I would sit there and do music stuff. Like at that time, I really wasn't accomplishing much. I thought I was. But one of the things I still remember, it's so funny. I could walk in the factory probably right now and find the exact cubicle I was sitting in, because I just remember like that, thinking about this when I discovered the name. So I was sitting there just like literally randomly searching through like words. I don't know if it was like dictionary.com or what it was. And I was like, I need some word that sounds cool with Michael being the first name. And somehow, I have no idea, just stumbled upon Wavves, and I was like, Michael Wavves. I was like, that kind of sounds cool. Yeah, I was like, that has, you know, it doesn't sound bad. And I was like, well, to make it Google friendly, I'll add a second V in the waves to make it a little more distinct.
Genius, dude. Seriously.
Well, it's funny. There's actually a surf rock band called Wavves with 2 V's.
Oh, what?
I didn't find this out until like a year after I changed my name.
I had no idea.
Yeah, I didn't either. Their fans will like every so often, like every like 4 months, I'll get like an angry tweet on Twitter, and it's like, "You're not the real Wavves." I'm like, "Well, I'm not," but
right.
whatever.
Yeah. Do a little research.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
It is what it is. It's funny. But yeah, so I chose that and I guess it kind of had a ring to it, I guess. Also, one thing I didn't realize that it sounds like microwave. I got that a lot when I started to get some traction online.
Okay.
People would talk shit in comments about like, what's his name, Microwave?
That's pretty good.
Which it is good. So what I did, and you're exactly right, it is good. I took I got it, a handful of times, like that joke. Yeah. So I put it on a merch item.
You spun it? Oh,
yeah.
Nice.
So I put I made like a design with a microwave with kind of like my logo colors, and I put it on a t-shirt.
Yeah.
So I thought it was funny that way to try
awesome.
to spin it like that.
Right.
But yeah, man, so that's how the name really came up. And it is kind of funny now, like anytime anybody calls me like Mike or even just, Michael, I guess I'm more so responsive because my dad's name is Mike and I have like a good friend named Mike. I've never been the Mike, you know what I mean? Like every kind of group has like a Mike in it, you know what I mean? I've never been the Mike. So it's interesting if like I'll be at a show and like, a fan or whether it's, another artist that knows me by Michael Wavves will be like, yo, Mike. And like, I usually don't respond the first time because I'm like, oh, that's not me. And he's not looking for me. And then they'll be like, yo, Mike. And I'm like, oh shit, that's right. So I'll turn around.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of super, again, no really rhyme or reason. I was literally just looking to change my name and that's kind of what came about. So I'm kind of glad I landed on that because I think it has kind of like a long lasting stay. It has a ring to it, like you said, I think.
It does, yeah. What comes to mind when I'm thinking it's like sound waves,
right,
radio waves. There's just so much you could do off of that.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's just smooth, like Michael Wavves.
Right, yeah. It's not too hard to say, I think.
Yeah.
And I wasn't even thinking about that kind of shit at the time, but I'm glad
it worked out.
Yeah, right.
I saw in 2019 you released Purple Heart, which this is phenomenal for a guy out of Pennsylvania, especially Lebanon County. Was debuted at number 12 on iTunes top R&B charts.
Yeah.
What was that like? How was it producing it? And where do you go here? I know you're in Lancaster, so I'm throwing a lot of questions at you. But where did you go to produce that, to record the sound and everything?
Yeah, so I guess first, like feeling-wise, it was awesome. I definitely am a person, and my wife can for sure attest to this. I don't celebrate the wins enough, and I think a lot of people suffer from that are kind of going after something, and I'm sure you can relate to that, where like you celebrate it for like a millisecond in your mind, and then you're like, all right, well, how do we build and on to the next? And again, my wife has been like great at being like, yo, you need to like slow down and be happy about this.
You're your biggest critic. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No. You're exactly right.
I can be. Yeah.
You're 100% right. And like even like last night, I was at dinner with like her family, and we always do cheers at the beginning of dinner, and somebody says like a cheers, which is actually a really cool,
awesome.
like it's a really cool, like wholesome thing. And they were like, best of luck on the tour, following your like very support. Like it was awesome, but I was so uncomfortable because I'm like, oh, this is me celebrating something, and
I know what you mean.
You know what I'm saying? Like it was a little bit uncomfortable because it's just an example of like me not letting myself like celebrate the wins. But it was really cool. Like I remember waking up that morning and like I grinded hard to try to like have anybody pre-order it. And that was back when iTunes is still around, but like streaming was more so of a thing. So pushing fans to iTunes was really great. Because it costs more money to buy something on iTunes. So usually fans will go right to like Apple Music or Spotify, and you don't need to buy it per se. So people that bought it, I'm eternally grateful for, whether it was friends, family, or fans. But yeah, I remember waking up that morning. I remember I might have even stayed up till like I think I did actually stay up till midnight because that's when kind of it resets. I think at like midnight or 1 o'clock, waiting to like just refreshing the charts to see if I appeared there.
Right.
And I only stayed there for a couple days, and it is what it is. And again, there's another example right there of me not celebrating the wins. I'm like, I stayed there for a couple days. But yeah, it was really cool, man. For a second I was just like, we're on the right path, there's something here that I think I can build on. I know I can build on. So it was great in that way. And what were the rest of the questions there? Cause they were great.
Yep. So the other question was, do you remember what studio did you record it?
Yeah.
If you want to shout them out.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I don't know anything about how music's produced or recorded. So maybe for the listeners and for myself, what was that process like?
Right. Yeah. So back at that point, like not to go too deep into it, cause it is kind of a rabbit hole, but like back at that point, I didn't really have too many producer friends to like make the instrumentals and the beats for the songs because I don't know how to do any of that. So at that point, there's a lot of producers that post their stuff on the internet. They'll have like beat stores and stuff like that, like BeatStars, SoundClick back in the day. Like there's these different websites where like, let's say you were a producer, you could upload all your beats online and then artists could sift through your page, listen to everything that you have and like, oh, I like beat number 8. I'm going to basically lease it from you, which they'll pay some money. You get like, you know, certain rights for how many streams you can get and how, you know, whatever. You basically pay like $40 and you can use the beat is basically what you don't own it, but you can use it. Right. So back then I leased all the beats, I think, off of Purple Heart. Now I work with a producer. Do you know who Max Getz is by any chance?
Yeah, that sounds real familiar.
Yeah, so I just started working with Max. I was just there earlier, actually. Had my last studio session before we left for tour. I had to finish a song that's the intro of my set, so now I have to memorize it before Sunday, which is going to be appreciate that. Yeah. But yeah, Max Getz is who I work with now, and he produced 2 of the last 3 songs we did together, and it's much better to like kind of make things from scratch as opposed to like when it has to do with ownership and royalties and all that kind of stuff. It's just much simpler. But back when we did Purple Heart, a good friend of mine, he was like in my wedding party. His name's Eric Fletcher. We met in college through a mutual friend. And back then, I just had like a bunch of shitty lyrics in a notebook, and I didn't, you know, I consider myself. I still remember like going to college classes, and you go like around the circle, like, what's something interesting about yourself? I'm like, I'm a rapper, and all I had was like shit lyrics down in a notebook. I had nothing recorded.
And everybody looks at you like, really?
Like this guy, the white rapper in college, right. This guy, right.
Little do they know.
Yeah, exactly. I never stopped. But so like at that point, I had this mutual friend that I had education classes with, and he was like, oh, I have this buddy of mine. He records like some dudes in the dorm. And he's like, you should meet him. I'm like, all right, cool. So I met Eric. We became real good friends, and like we just kind of hit the ground running. We don't work together anymore. He kind of recently, within the past like 2 years, like kind of stopped doing the recording thing, so transitioned out of that. But at the time, he did all of Purple Heart, where he recorded all of it, he engineered all of it, he did all my vocal editing and stuff like that. So
wow,
yeah, we literally built like a professional studio in like his basement over a couple years. Yeah, just like dumped a few grand anytime we could, anytime we had any extra money, like refund check or Christmas money or birthday money. Yeah, we bought new pieces of equipment, and then over like 2-3 years we had like a really solid, great sounding setup, and he was very skilled at engineering, and you know, taught himself how to do all of it by like watching YouTube videos. You know, it's not like he went to like Full Sail or any recording school. It was all very, and same as me, like we were all like self-taught. Like we're like, well, we're just gonna do this by ear, what sounds right. Like we didn't really know too much about it. He was in a band, so he knew more than I did. But yeah, he did all of Purple Heart, so it was cool to see it kind of have a moment where, and that one was kind of like my first flagship project where I started to see some fans trickle in and stuff like that, which is really cool looking back, because I'm very proud of that project. Like it tells a cohesive story. It kind of has like a central theme around it.
Right.
So
and
yeah, man.
It sounds amazing. Like I would have never known that it was set up in the basement, you know, kind of compiled, which, you know, that's kind of like our studio here at American Grown Podcast. You know, it's in the Colortech Creative Solutions studios, just got redone, and
like I said, man, the best shit happens in the basement.
Exactly, you did say that exactly right. So no, that's phenomenal. So let me ask you this: what's your average day look like? So not yet on tour, just your average day going about. You know, I'm assuming maybe there's a full-time job, and then you have this as like your side hustle. But like, what's it like?
Right. Yeah. No, it definitely gets interesting, and could be a lot. Like, so my day job right now, so I'm an 8th grade social studies teacher.
Oh, I love social studies.
Yeah, no, me too,
Phenomenal.
Man. So 8th grade social studies teacher, and like that's kind of, you know, that's my quote unquote day job, I guess you could say. And there's many aspects about teaching that I love. There's a lot of the things I love about teaching are a lot of the same reasons why I pursue music and love music. Where like impacting people and different things like that, whether it's impacting kids with, you know, a positive figure in their life like a teacher, or whether it's impacting fans and people that listen to my music, you know, in that way. So there's definitely a lot of parallels with that. I mean, teaching, to be as transparent as possible, that's something I'm trying to work out of and do the music full time, obviously.
Right.
But yeah, there's elements of teaching that I do really enjoy. There's other things that really suck about it. It's definitely a very taxing career, and it's not something I can see. I'm going to give myself another year or two before I move on out of it.
Yeah.
But teaching has been really great, not only because like my coworkers are always super supportive. They come out to shows. Kids, I still get.
I was going to ask you, like students, do they?
Yeah. So
show love and support.
Yeah, they do. Some of them are haters, but they're 8th graders. So
yeah,
I
it's
can
that
understand.
age.
Yeah,
it's
it's
that
that
age.
age they want to be a hater. I get it. But yeah, dude, when I first started, I remember being like super nervous of like what, like I was like, am I gonna get fired if they discover this, or like I didn't know what what was gonna happen, and I remember when people first started finding out because the Lebanon Daily News did an article on me, and they actually ended up putting it on the front page of the paper.
Whoa, dude, front page.
Like,
Lebanon Daily
so it
News.
was cool.
Yeah.
And that was this was like
Seriously.
5-6 years ago. So more people kind of read the physical paper. Now it's just like old people that like read the paper.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they put me on the front page. I still remember I came into school that day. It was like one of my first or second years like working there, and they were like, I had no idea. Like the secretaries in the main office were like, this is crazy. And I'm like, yeah. And then so that was like the first time I really had to be. I wasn't hiding it, but I wasn't like broadcasting. And that's kind of the same now. Like I have kids and all the kids know about it. Like I'm kind of known as like the teacher that's a rapper or a musician or whatever. In a non-corny way. I'm not like up there like rapping about like U.S. history.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like to me, that's like super tacky and super corny because I take my music career very seriously.
Yeah, well, for sure.
But yeah, so it was kind of an interesting thing. But now it's super cool. Like I was long-winded answer to get to, but a lot of kids will message me, like they'll find me on Instagram or whatever. Like I'm pretty easy to find online, I guess. But they'll be like, they'll start pursuing music themselves, or they'll be like, hey, like you were an inspiration back when I had, like, I maybe never said anything when I was that, like you're 14, you're not going to walk up to an adult and say you're an inspiration, like you're going to grow into it later and then be like, wow, this person actually impacted me more than I thought. Yeah. So I get a handful of those types of kids that shoot me messages or like approach me, if I see them at the store, or like maybe, if we are at school or whatever. So it's actually a really cool thing because like I said, I was super nervous when I first started, and now it's transitioned into like a really awesome thing where I do think I'm probably impacting more kids than I give myself credit for, which is just an amazing thing to see. Like, especially kids. There's kid like I just actually found on the way here, like a kid I had a couple years ago passed away. Like this is like, there are a lot of kids in this area deal with a lot of tough shit. Like a lot more than probably people think. Mm-hmm. Especially me. Like I grew up like outside the city in a middle class neighborhood that has an in-ground pool. Right. Both my parents are together. Had a steady job. Like there's a lot of kids that aren't in those scenarios in this area. Yeah. And I think a lot of people don't necessarily realize that fully, especially in a smaller city like Lebanon. Like maybe you're like, oh, Philly. There's some rough areas. There's rough. Kids that are in like broken family units, and that's here in Lebanon too. And I like to think that I can hopefully be an example to them that like, hey, I don't necessarily have to follow the same path of like kind of self-destruction or bad decisions like maybe the people around me. I can kind of maybe take a left turn and do something non-traditional because I love it, and then maybe that can lead to something like a career down the road that is something I enjoy doing and passionate about. And
exactly, love what you do in life. If you can chase your passions, and like you hinted at earlier, a 4-year college is not for everybody. Mm-hmm. Whether it's a tech school, you get right into a career, or you have the capability or the cojones really to chase your dream, and go after something that people might make fun of you for, because it's like, really, you're a singer? You think you can do podcasts? You think you can play the guitar? It's like, well, yeah, let me prove you all wrong, and go out there.
100%.
It's funny you mentioned, too, being a history teacher. That was, like, my favorite class, like I said, in high school and everything, even middle school. But I just picture, like, School of Rock, Jack Black. So, do you ever, while you're there, like, play some of your music for the kids and like, get their opinion?
Yeah, sometimes, I have, like, I'll like, work on demos that I'm really excited about. A demo is kind of just, like, an unfinished song. Like, it's just, like, an idea. So I'll bring something in, and I'll be like, hey, I'm working on this. Like, what do you think? Yeah,
like over lunch or, like, a study period or something like that.
I'll do it in class. I don't even care. Like, I'm just like, hey, while they're working on something, or I'll just be like, hey, like, listen to this. Let me know what you think. Especially because it is nice. I can kind of tap into, like, what kids are into.
Because that's the next generation. I mean, those
and that's that's a market really when you think about it business wise, and it's just good to get that kind of opinion because I'm not a young kid, so I'm not as tapped into what I don't want to say what's hip because that makes me sound old, but like what's current and popping right now. Exactly. And so it is good for that. I don't like go out of my way and like play it all the time. And kids will ask me like, play your music, and I'm like, you can look it up on the internet. Like it's pretty easy to find. If you want to listen to it, you can go in your own time and check it out.
I see you're about to kick off the Content Overload Tour. July 10th it starts with over 15 stops planned. Who's all on board? What's it like?
Yeah, it's a lot, man. So I leave in 2 days. The crew gets 2 days. So yeah, so like I leave in 3 days actually on Sunday morning. The first show's in Philly. So there's like 6 of us. Myself, Danny G, who's the co-headliner, he's out of Nashville, and then we have our tour manager, who's a manager out of Nashville as well, and then we have like a content guy, we have a DJ, and like a assistant tour manager to help out with things. So this is the first, like, I've always done like DIY touring myself. I started touring before I should have, to be honest. Like, I started touring before I had any fans. I started touring before I knew what I was even doing. I started touring out of necessity, man. Like, it was something that I was like, I always had control over. I have control of trying to book my own shows. I don't have control of a big YouTube channel posting my song. I don't have control of the algorithm picking up my song and getting a bunch of plays. I don't have control over going viral, but I have a little more control over playing live shows and trying to bet on that to win people over to be fans.
Yeah.
So I started doing the touring thing pretty DIY. Just myself, like whipping around in my SUV. My last little run last Christmas, which kind of got like derailed because Omicron variant hit and kind of canceled some of the shows. But my dad came along. Like, it's very like grassroots shit, man. And I would not have it any other way. And this Content Overload tour is kind of the first real, like, I don't want to say legit tour because I consider all my shows like legit shows. And I take everything very professionally. But this is like, we have a squad, we have like a tour crew, we have a passenger van we're touring the country with. We're playing 18 cities across the country.
Whoa.
You know, we have tour sponsors. We have like, it's a lot of shit. It's a lot of moving parts and it's a lot of work. Like this week has just been insane in terms of tour prep and stuff like that. But yeah, we have a group of 6 guys. We're going around. Like, I'm excited to meet fans that have been fans of me for a while. I'm excited to make a bunch of new fans. I'm excited to document it and make content out of it and, you know, grow my social media presence and just kind of expose, you know, people into kind of an aspect of my life that I'm super proud of. And it's something that in years, like, I'll look back and be like, man, I remember that first big tour, like that the Content Overload tour, that first big one. And, you know, really be able to, like, I want to enjoy this the most I can because there's going to be some rough shows. Like, I'm playing this show in like Tulsa, Oklahoma. I don't even know if I have any fans in Tulsa, Oklahoma. I probably don't. But I want to be able to leave Tulsa with maybe 5-10 people that give a shit about what I got going on and grow it. You know, it's just like, I always compare this type of stuff to being an entrepreneur and like starting a business. Like, whether it's you're starting a coffee shop or, you know, whatever. And, you know, like, obviously this is your family business. Like, somebody at some point took a risk to be like, you know what, I want to start a business and it's going to be hard. I'm going to eat shit. I'm not going to make money for probably a number of years initially. But I know this is something, a foundation I can grow on. And there's really something here. And most importantly, I'm passionate about it and I enjoy it.
That's it.
And that's what, like, and I did like this interview with Lebtown and like the last paragraph of it, because they were asking me about the tour. I said, this is a prime example of me looking like over the edge of the cliff and saying, fuck it, let's go. I'm going to jump off the cliff. I'll figure it out on my way down and I'll be able to learn from this experience, take a risk and kind of translate it into a learning experience that I can continue building from.
Oh yeah. It's definitely a leap of faith on your part.
That's a great word for it. Yeah.
But if you don't do it, you know, how are you ever going to know? And if you don't go out there to Oklahoma and all these other cities that you're going into, how are you going to know whether you have fans there or not currently? If people, you know, want your music, they could be like, hear you once, and it's all of a sudden like, that's a guy. Like, that's what, you know what I mean? They click with you and they want more of your music. So, you know, I wish you best of luck on it. You know,
I appreciate that.
And I know you're going to kill it. I'll be definitely following along on social media. Cause like you
come
said,
through to Lancaster, man. If you got nothing going on, we're there the 15th at Tell
I might take you up on that. Okay.
Yeah, I would love that.
Fantastic. Yeah, that'd be awesome. My next question, what are you really passionate about? And I think you kind of hinted on it, but maybe you can, you know, kind of.
No, I love that question.
Yeah.
My friends that have listened to this, I'm like the dude that like gets a bag on and starts talking about what you're passionate about. Like, I'm the guy at the bar that like after a few drinks starts talking about like what you're passionate about. Like, so what's your passion? But yeah, so I love this question. But I think when I was younger, I didn't know what I was passionate about. And I think as I got older, I think I kind of had some self-discovery and like, okay, so why am I making music, or why am I obsessed with this? It wasn't necessarily like, I do love crafting songs and making songs. It's an amazing process. It's like literally manifesting something out of nothing. But I think, you know, what I'm passionate about is just like helping people realize that there is like literally anything is possible. And that sounds so cliche and so generic, but it's like literally anything is possible as long as you believe it is. I think people that live life that's like, yeah, that's, you know, you can't do that. That's an example of them holding themselves back. And that's a mindset flaw, really, because there is an unlimited amount of possibilities, you know, whether you believe in yourself at first or not. something where consistency can build confidence over time. And I just want to be an example, man. Like, what drives me is being an example to other people that you can do anything you want and you can do something that makes you happy. Because there is like a lot of like, whether it's in my family or friends, like I see so many people work a job and just hate it, like are drained. And then before you know it, 20 years go by, 35 years go by, you retire, and you hear horror stories, dude. Like I had a neighbor.
Yeah.
He was a cop I didn't know him like super well, but like he got brain cancer and died within like a year of his retirement.
Oh my God.
Like he retired and was not even retired a year, got a terminal illness and died. And I'm like, I'll be damned if I sit here and like make a choice to like work a job that I dislike for 30 years, retire, and then be like, oh, now I can live life. I want to take a chance and like put in the groundwork initially, whether like I'm going to eat shit for a long time and I'm not going to make money at first. I'm going to lose money. I'm going to be investing in myself. And that's like even a side conversation. It took me a while to understand, like to fully accept spending money on like music and things was investing in myself and not a waste of money.
Sometimes that could be the best bet though, is betting on yourself.
Right. And I think, and I've had great conversations with people too, like about like the pandemic where everyone's like, well, getting a job is the safe option. And then you're watching all these people get laid off. That might not be the safe option. Like the people that were the safest were the people that had control of their career situation, whether it, like I said, like I have a good buddy of mine that started his own coffee. Like he grinds his own coffee or roasts his own coffee beans in his garage. Now he has like a warehouse, and it was like during COVID, I can't remember what his actual job was, but he got laid off and he's like, well, I have the side business. I'm just going to go all in. And now that's his career.
That's a phenomenal.
And it's just like such a great story where like, and that's a huge inspiration to me. So shout out to Glenn, but like, that's such an inspiration to me where it's like, it just reinforces my mindset, especially in times of like self-doubt. Like I see stories like that, like especially from people I know. And I'm like, you know what? And it just reinforces what I'm passionate about, where it's like anything is possible. Any path is a completely viable path. Other people's opinions on what they think you should do are totally irrelevant. Like obviously take certain, from your parents and stuff, take them into account, but don't let them judge all of your decisions. If you really want to go after something, one day, as grim as it sounds, and I think about this all the time, one day I'm going to die, or I'm going to be dealing with the thought of I'm going to die soon.
Right.
And I cannot fathom living with massive regret at that point in my life, knowing that I can't go back. And even for like my kids, like, I mean, I don't have kids now, but like my future children, like I want them to look at me, or like fans to look at me, or anybody that ever comes across my story and be like, damn, like he really did something that people didn't think he could do and showed me that I can go after something. And that's really what I'm here to do. I'm
a big believer if you put it out into the universe, it will manifest itself. Like if you put your mind to it, you can do anything. And I think it's important for everyone to know that. Definitely wanted to shout out Glenn. I don't know if you know the coffee company that he has.
Yeah, Otis Coffee.
Perfect.
OTUS. Yeah, check out Otis Coffee. My homie Glenn Turchin. He grew up right down the street. We played street hockey.
Phenomenal.
Back in the day in the cul-de-sac, and he's living the dream, man. I'm super proud of him, and I hope he listens to this. I'll have to send him this episode. But yeah, shout out to him. Massive inspiration to me. It's really cool too, because like not to go on another tangent, but like we grew up on the same street. Never would have thought we would have both been like kind of chasing after something. And I have another buddy of mine. Do you know who Craig Hartman is?
Yeah, why does that sound familiar? Hartman sounds familiar.
So he grew up like in the cul-de-sac that I grew up in. Yeah. He started his own kind of apparel business, and so it's really cool, man. It's cool to see people you were at like the most like simple stages of your life with, like growing up in the neighborhood. All you did was like play kick the can and like football and baseball and stuff like that. But like when you get older, seeing people like guys like that I'm super close with, being like, oh, they have a similar mentality to me where they're going after something. I was like, that's so tight. But yeah, so shout out to Glenn, Otis Coffee, Craig, and King's Water Apparel. Yeah, so check them out. That's
phenomenal.
Yeah, my homies. Yeah,
Glenn and Craig, podcast doors always open to you guys. If you ever want to jump on.
Yeah, I'll definitely if you direct them your way.
Yeah. Always looking for people that want to come on and tell their story. So, what drives you personally to do what you do day in and day out?
What drives me personally? I think primarily, and maybe it's a selfish answer, but I think as I get older, I get better at accepting what I previously maybe thought was a selfish motive. And I want to prove to myself that I was right, if that makes sense. Like I want to prove to myself that the visions and the dreams and the plans, everything that's been in my mind and that I'm in the process of manifesting, I was right about it. Like me betting on myself, that was the right bet to make. Yeah. So that primarily, because I think, especially like growing up when I talked about like playing, like being like a B team athlete, I think me not being too great at sports and stuff like that definitely like kind of damaged my confidence growing up, because there was really not a moment I can look back and be like, wow, overcame there. There was nothing really that and I'm sure there were moments of it, but there never really was a specific moment I can look back on. It's actually funny that you had Coach Bear on here. He's probably actually, like, when I really think about it, somebody in my life that really was, like, in terms of like a positive inspiration, in terms of like continuing to like believe in yourself. He's the best coach I think I've ever had.
Phenomenal coach.
Yeah. Amazing guy, man. And I read his book as well.
Yes.
So I hope he listens to this. If you do, Coach Bear, I would love to just like get a coffee or a beer with you, because his energy is infectious, man. It's so like, his energy is so like, I can think about it now and it's still so vivid, even though it was so many years ago when like I ran track and stuff like that. But anyways, like, what drives me is so proving myself right. Number one, I think. And number two, like I said, I just want to be an example. I want to, like, even my wife has dreams of things she wants to do. I want to be an example to push her and to prove to her that, her dreams aren't foolish. Her dreams aren't far-fetched, and to pursue those types of things. And especially for my kids, like, and again, I don't have any kids, but I think about, I try to put myself in the shoes. Like, I don't think, as much as I can think about what it's like to have kids, you don't really know, I'm sure, until you have them in front of you or in your arms. But like, I try to think about, like, me as a father, and I want to be an example to where, like I said earlier, like, my kids can look and be like, my dad went against the grain. My dad, when they get old enough to try to, understand, what life is all about, and choices and career paths and, what you're passionate about. I want them to look at me as an inspiration, even if when they're older and I'm not around anymore. I want to build a legacy of making a choice to bet on yourself, believe in yourself, find what you're passionate about. If you're lucky enough, I think people will sometimes live their whole life and don't really find what they're passionate about, which is kind of a sad thing to think about. But if you're open enough to it and can tap into what you're happy, what makes you happy in life and what you're passionate about, just an example that, like, hey, this isn't just a hobby. This isn't just like a side gig. This can be something that is your life. And literally, like, and I'm sure, like you said, your grandfather started this business.
Yeah, he did.
He literally started a legacy for your whole family. Like, it was, my wife and I talk about it, and my mother-in-law and I talk about it too, like cycle breaking, where there's like a cycle where, like, it's just like a monotonous, like, oh, you get the job, you retire, boom, you have kids, your kids get old enough, they get the job. But there was somebody in your family unit, in your case, your grandfather, that said, I want to start this business. And he built this legacy of something new that your family can be a part of, that it created a whole new path that I think probably before him, people, when he probably started this business, people probably thought he was a fool in certain ways. I don't know anything about, what you guys do in particular, but it's like, probably there was people that were in this, he was in the same position as us, where people were like, yo, that's foolish. And now look at it now. Like, he took that left turn, he made that bet on himself, which created a legacy for generations to come. And I want to be that for my family. So I guess that's like my primary, my family, and just people that come across me, fans or friends or whoever that come across what I'm doing. I just want them to be inspired and bet on themselves and believe in themselves, because not enough people do.
Oh, exactly. You got to go all in on yourself. It's the safest bet in my mind. Right. And, it definitely hits close to home what you say, because, like, you're exactly right. My grandfather started Colortech Creative Solutions back in 1980.
So what do you guys do exactly? I feel like I should have Googled that.
Oh, that's a great question. Actually, the first person to ever asked me. So, like, okay. Yeah, so I'll go on a little tangent. I love that. But I don't want to take up too much, because, like I said, it's about you. But so 1980, we started out as a color separation, a film house. So we worked
1980, you said?
Yeah, 1980. Wow. So we worked with printers all across the East Coast, New York, New Jersey, Philadelphia, all across PA. And then we transferred into a print shop in the early 90s. We started getting into printing. So we print like maps for Hershey Park. We print for Wise Markets, Rite Aid. Yeah, all kind of printing.
I probably have held products that have been printed by you guys.
Yeah. Well, actually, we have a bunch of stuff right now at Wise Markets, these little rack cards. But so we can print posters, business cards, letterhead, envelopes, all kinds of stuff.
Oh, really? I'll have to hit you guys up.
Yeah. Oh, no, seriously. If you need posters for, this tour is obviously well underway.
I have everything already, but in the
for future options. Sure. He took a risk. He was working for a very large print company in Annville called Lebanon Valley Offset, and he saw technology changing, and he took the back door. The owner said, no, we're not going to change, and he said, well, I'm going to start my own thing.
Took the risk, bet it on himself, man.
Bet on himself.
That's the shit, man.
Yep, he has that strong,
gets me going, bro.
Exactly, Pennsylvania Dutch accent that you can barely understand, but he went out and sold in his heyday. him alone will sell 2.8 million roughly in sales. One guy, yeah.
Hell
and
yeah.
now we're
love to hear that.
Exactly. We have 25 employees now.
That's something you hear about in a movie, that kind of shit.
It is.
Love
It
that.
is. He's 84. He still comes into the shop.
Amazing.
He's crazy. I love him, but he's out of his mind.
Shout out to your grandpa.
Yeah. No, thank you, Jordan, for bringing that up because, I'm very proud of what we got here. And, we're not the biggest operation going, but what we got is good, and we got some great people, very talented people. So if anybody out there, any listeners need some quality printing, Colortech Creative Solutions, hit up Austin.
Up, man.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So now to come back in, how can our listeners connect with you? How can they follow along on your journey?
Yeah.
Do you have any merch? Like, let's get all the details.
Yeah, so I think by the time this comes out, tour will be over, but I hopefully won't, but I might have merch left over after tour. Hopefully I sell it all on tour.
Yes.
But yeah, so michaelwavves.com, MICHAELWAVV, 2 V's in there, ES.com. Social media, I'm just at Michael Wavves on all platforms. That was actually one of the reasons also I chose that name. I checked all the social medias to make sure I could get at Michael. I didn't have to put like an underscore or Michael Wavves or the real Michael Wavves. So I was like, all right, cool, got that. So yeah, at Michael Wavves, michaelwavves.com. If you just Google Michael Wavves, odds are, again, one of the reasons I chose the names, you could find me pretty easily. So you could tap in that way, man. And I do have merch on my website and stuff like that. So yeah, give me a Google, check me out, and tap in.
Yeah, that's partially I found you on Instagram.
Yeah.
And through JD, John Donnelly.
Yeah, shout out JD, man.
Yeah, he's like, you got to reach out to this Jordan, a.k.a. Michael Wavves. And I'm like, I never heard of him, but I'm down. Let's check it out.
I was just talking to him just the other day, man. Yeah, shout out to him. That's great.
Real
I'm glad
good
he
guy.
connected you and I,
Yeah, you're killing it on TikTok, in my opinion, because I saw your videos. I mean, 200, 300, 400 views, some in the thousands, and I'm like,
yeah, I got to grow on TikTok, man. I mean, Instagram is probably my most popping platform right now. I'm trying to grow on. Actually, the guy I'm going on tour with, Danny G, he's really popping on TikTok.
Okay,
right? He's got like 700, 800,000 followers. Whoa. He's got like millions of. He's got it down to a science. So I'm going to be, especially when I'm on tour with him this summer, I'm going to be like writing notes.
Learn a little bit. Yeah, young grasshopper.
Yeah, right, exactly. Like learn to talk about like popping on TikTok. He's the guy. So yeah, I appreciate the kind words though.
Yeah, seriously. So before we close out, is there anything else you'd like the listeners to know about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, follow your dreams. If there's something in your mind, and I tell my students this, I tell fans this when I meet them at shows, I tell my friends this, or, me and my wife talk about this all the time, but like, if there's something in your life that you're passionate about and you're happy about, don't for a second doubt that thought or doubt that path. Realize that that's a completely viable choice. It's just going to take a lot longer. You're going to have a lot more ups and downs. It's going to take a heck of a lot more work and groundwork, building a foundation to build on. But it's worth it, man. And just, like I said, follow your dreams, go after what you're passionate about.
And I got to say, when you say ups and downs, my grandfather, he's famous for saying, you got to ride the wave, right? There's going to be highs and there's going to be lows.
No pun intended.
Exactly. Didn't even think about that. Yeah. Maybe the bourbon's hitting, but, right. Exactly. And you don't want to get too high, but you don't want to get too low. It's like celebrate, but keep hustling, keep driving. Mm-hmm. So for all the people listening out there, I got to cheers you because your outfit's a vibe, man. I'm loving
my outfit. Thanks, bro.
Dude.
I made this shirt actually. Cheers, bro.
What? Oh, seriously?
Yeah, so this shirt I got at a I appreciate you saying that. I got it at a thrift store.
Okay.
And it was originally this blue color.
Yeah.
And I just bleached it, which is totally like a trendy thing now, but I did this a couple years ago. Maybe it was before it was a trend. But yeah, I just bleached it.
You started the trend.
I might have.
So for everybody out there, you did. You got to check out check us out on social media, American Grown Podcast. You'll see the photos there. Obviously you can't see them over the podcast, but check us out on social media because I think it's an awesome shirt.
Appreciate it, bro.
This has been Jordan Bleyer, aka Michael Wavves, on the American Grown Podcast in the Colortech Creative Solutions studios. Thank you for joining me.
Appreciate you having me, man. Great time.
If you want to see more American Grown content, follow along on Facebook and Instagram. Username American Grown Podcast. If you received any value, please share this episode with friends, family, and coworkers. And lastly, subscribe and leave a review.
If you'd like to be a featured guest on the podcast, please direct message or email Austin at americangrownpod@gmail.com.